So the first thing I would like everyone to do is stand up for 1 second. Turn to your left. Give a round of applause for our AV team. So today we're talking about podcasting. We're talking about internal podcasting versus external podcasting. And the question that I always get is like, what's the difference between the two? Like they both sound pretty much the same, but there is a distinct difference between them. So before we get into that, I'd like to give a warning because I'm kind of one of those people that I've been out of corporate America for a period of time, being a podcaster. That means we can be pretty, kind of speak our mind at times. So if you don't mind having fun with me today and learning, right? And if you don't mind taking action on what you're going to learn, go ahead and nod your heads and say yes. Yes. Okay. Now you can forget about the fine print about me cursing. I'm going to try to keep that down to a minimum. Okay. So the differences between internal podcasting and external podcasting. You can look at the screen and you can see they're almost identical, but there's one key difference between the two. That is that an internal podcast allows you to have a private podcast. And now you may be thinking, well, why the hell do I need a private podcast? Don't I want more people to hear my episodes? Don't I want more downloads? Well, that's true for an external podcast. An internal podcast is something, if you think about it from the standpoint, if you are a new startup company, and you're creating a new empire, wouldn't it be cool to document these processes? Wouldn't it be cool to document this information? And it doesn't have to be public facing, it can be information behind the scenes to allow your team understand that they are connected to each other, to allow your team to know that they're a part of something that's gonna be bigger than them, and again, you're building a legacy. That is the key thing for internal podcasting versus external podcasting. So some additional benefits, right? Podcasters are sexy, right? So everyone in this room, I want you to think about this. If you're going to become a podcaster, you're going to have to embody that, okay? You're going to have to become a personality. You're going to have to become the person that's in front of the camera, or at least the person behind the scenes that understands what needs to be delivered once you're in front of audience. What needs to be delivered once you're having an interview with someone. So again, think of it from the standpoint of I'm sexy and I know it. So internal podcasts. This is not a new thing. It's been around for a period of time. So if you're looking at the screen right now, you can see that there's 3 internal podcasts, and they're well-named, right? I mean, you're talking about American Airlines, you're talking about Netflix, you're talking about Trader Joe's. All 3 of these companies are corporate companies that are pretty well up on the food chain that have internal podcasting. And now those internal podcasts have become external podcasts. That's the other leveraging aspect of having an internal podcast. It is a pilot program for your external podcast. It is user testing. You're testing all the information, the data on that podcast on your internal team, which essentially is your employees. And if you look at the quote below, you see 62% of people today are listening to podcasts, right? That's up from 57% from the year before. Out of that 62%, how many of them do you think are your employees? I would think a large portion of those people. So you have to look at your employees as your target audience, and by giving them an outlet to create an internal podcast, taking that information and turning it into an external podcast is the best strategy to execute. So what we're going to go over today is acronyms, right? I like these 3 acronyms. It almost reads like a sentence. Teams build value. So the first one, we're going to be talking about team building. Because again, most people are saying, how do I develop a podcast? I know nothing about it. Well, you don't have to know anything about it. Your team is going to build it for you, and I'll demonstrate that for you here shortly. In addition to that, we're going to talk about building content. Again, podcasting is a content monster. One piece of content for 1 hour worth of recording could essentially be hundreds and hundreds of pieces of content that can come from that one episode. And last but not least is growth strategy. How do you use and leverage that content to then grow and create more value for and from your employees, from your company, and for your podcast? So we're talking about team building, teams, right? We're going to learn how, we're going to diversify our voices, we're going to track results, we're also going to do time management, and we're going to do conversions. Now you may be thinking like, well, that seems like a big thing to do for one person, but the goal is, this acronym, we're going to break it down into something that's very simple. T is for trainers, talented individuals, right? There are teachers on every single team in every single company. They may not be the person that's teaching anyone right now, but they are educated people that want to teach someone. You need to find those people. If you look at the screen, you'll see the researchers, people that document, people that take extensive notes, people that are systematizers, people that love to learn. Those are your T's when it comes to team. The faster you find them, the easier it's going to be, because now you do not have to figure out how to create the podcast. The teachers will for you. E, these are the people most of us are. We're talking about marketers, right? We're talking about designers. We're talking about people that are highly excited people, right? People that are, and this gift kind of explains exactly the heart of these people. Like, we twitch out about whatever we're doing. We're highly passionate individuals. Those are the people that you want because they're bold, they're creative, they're marketers, they're recruiters, they're promoters. Again, if you're thinking about growing a podcast internally, these people are going to deliver that value for you. You don't have to market your podcast if you have someone that's excited about that podcast doing the marketing for you. A, everyone has a Tony Montana. Everyone knows someone that's overly ambitious, that's wanting to take over the world, that wants to climb that corporate ladder as fast as humanly possible. This person is data-driven. This person gets it done. This person has success written all over. This is the person that you want to essentially be in the middle of your teams, and that's A, for ambitious, aggressive achievers. M, everyone has a Wolf of Wall Street person in their company. This is the money-motivated people, and I always like to say they're usually like the managers. They're the ones that are usually overseeing things, right? So these are people that are task-driven. These are people that they like to delegate things to be done, and they are very cost-sensitive. Last but not least is sharp, seasoned sales reps. These are the people that are going to take that internal podcast, and eventually when it becomes an external podcast, leverage that content as a sales tool. They're going to leverage that content to upsell. They're going to be on a phone call with a client and say, yes, we have an episode that talks exactly about what you're asking. Here, go check this out. Here's the link. And again, the reason why you want them on the leg of the team, and if you know anything about Relay, the leg of the team is the bedrock of the team. Then they'll take that episode, take that information, take that podcast, and convert it into results. So let's recap. We're talking about teams. We're talking about talented individuals. We're talking about people that are excited. We're talking about ambitious. We're talking about money motivated. We're talking about sharp, seasoned salespeople. So this worksheet will help you outline that. Again, if you're in a team of 20 people or you're a team of 300 people, this document, again, is a QR code, and you scan it, you put your information in, and it'll send you an email with all the different documents and worksheets that we're working on today. But by having this, now you have an itemized list of who these people could be. It doesn't have to be someone in your company. It could be a friend. It can be an associate. It can be someone from another company. Again, you're finding the individuals to help you create a podcast without you having to do the podcast yourself. So we're going into content, right? How to build the content. So the first part of building the content is B, right? And we're talking about the benefits of building out this content. Some of you may be familiar with Answer the Republic. So the Answer Republic is a great website that you can type in any keyword for anything in this world, and it then is going to give you results. The beautiful part about Answer Republic is the results that they're going to give you are based upon who, why, what, how much, and so forth. And then you also have an opportunity to download an SV file, and from that CSV file, you'll be able to then take that information and utilize it for your content moving forward. So again, if I'm going to do an interview podcast and I'm talking about, let's say, branding, for example, I can type in that word and I can figure out what is the community of people right now on the internet looking for in branding. What do they want to know? How to do what? And all that information will be presented to you very quickly, and I would definitely recommend that if you have not been to this website, you should. U is for useful, utility of service, right? Again, we can go into SEO all day, all night, but in this case, keep it at top level, keeping it simple. Google Trends makes it very easy for you to then take those keywords that you figured out, you went to the other site to figure out, well, how am I going to do this? What am I going to do? Well, you need to verify the data to make sure that data is usable data. Make sure that your target audience is looking for that information. So in this case, you can type in 5 different keywords and compare them. Again, you want to see if they're trending. You can trend it over the last 6 weeks, you can trend it over the last 6 months, you can trend it over the last decade. But again, if you're putting these words in, you're looking for the trending. If it's trending up, then that's a topic that you want to then bring into your podcast for obvious reasons. The inform and inspire for I. Now this one is, again, it's content we're talking about. So you need to have facts, you need to have stats, you need to have quotes, you need to have charts. And again, you can do all this by just doing general research and collecting all this data. So what we're doing is essentially you're building your team. Now we're farming the information to then move forward to then create and develop this podcast. Again, you're doing it seamlessly without having to break a sweat. Last is learnability. Is all the information that you gather, is all the things that you're putting together, is it going to be usable, right? You do not want your target audience to bang their head on a rock to try to figure out what are you talking about and why you're talking about it. So then deliver surveys, deliver polls, right? Do case studies, do user testing. If you do this across your company, again, your employees are essentially your target audience for this particular podcast you're just starting internally. This will make it a lot easier for you to know exactly what your employees want and why they want it without you having to guess what they want. Demonstrate. Well, demonstrations is what we all do, right? Again, if you're a marketer, if you're a web developer, if you're a designer, whatever else it is, and if you're teaching someone, you may turn on Photoshop, right? You may activate a particular application and sit down with someone and show them step by step how to do it. All of that is great content for a podcast. It doesn't have to be the entire episode. It could be snippets of episodes, it could be clips to say, hey, we're talking about this today. Here's 5 minutes of what we're talking about. We're demonstrating it, and then we go into a Q&A session. So again, if you're doing interviews, it's golden. If you're doing demos, if you're recording, if you're doing webinars, screen shares, at the end all be all, you need to have a wow factor. And again, if the person that you're talking to and you're communicating with, they have a eureka moment, if their eyebrows are raised, and they're like, wow, I learned something, then you know that content is going to be golden. To recap, build. Benefits, usefulness, inform, learnability, demonstrate. Now out of all the forms, I would say this form is probably the one I recommend the most because again, you'll be able to use this form during your podcast. So you have a complete outline, right? You know the who, the what, the where, the why. You actually have what's trending, what's not trending. You actually have what's inspiring, you have quotes, you have stats, all in front of you, right? So now you have an opportunity to not even have to think anymore. You have a document in front of you with your key notes to move forward and record the best content that you can. Value. So I'm a brand strategist and a growth strategist combined, hence why I named it brand growth strategy. Because in this one, it's not just about the brand, it's not just about the growth, it's about the strategy behind the execution of what we're doing with the first 2 modules. So this one is, what's your promise? What's your key activities? Okay? Is it long lasting? Is it original? And are you going to make the achievement or your goal that you originally set out to do in the first place? First one is value proposition. If you're familiar with the business model or the lean model canvas, this is the first one. Again, if you're creating any business, you have to have a promise. So in this one, you want to think about your promise as a vision, right? As a mission statement, which we're all familiar with that terminology, but you really have to figure out what is the promise you're delivering by creating this podcast. And again, in this case, your employees are the ones that are going to be your target demographic. So what is the promise that you're making to the employee? Next is actionable activities. You want to ask for feedback. You can easily do that at the end of every episode. You could do it at the beginning of every episode. You could do it whenever. But again, as you're giving out content, as you're getting a wow factor, as you're demonstrating, you want those people to come back and return to you information to make sure that what you're delivering has value to it. Okay? So again, you want to request the result. Longevity. This animation of this dog is one of those things. 100 years from now, anyone that likes dogs is going to look at it and smile. It has longevity to it, no matter what's going on. So you have to think about your content. You have to think about your lifespan, your legacy of your brand, of your company, of your employees. Is your content in this internal podcast, is it going to be evergreen? Could somebody use that content 60 years down the road? Could someone use that content 3 weeks from now? And again, you want to stage it to where it's usable across the board, hence why evergreen is going to be a key thing. Unfair advantage. This goes back to the business model. Obviously, if you're creating a podcast, what makes that podcast unique? It could be a tagline, it could be a slogan. All of those are superficial, but in reality, it's, are you retaining your employees because now you have a podcast that's giving them opportunity to speak their minds? Are you holding employees now because you're giving them an opportunity to leverage the asset to say, hey, my company has a podcast, you should listen to it. And then the vision goals. Last but not least, I would say this goes down to the purpose statement. Why are you doing all this to begin with? Obviously, you want to grow your company. You want to hold on to your employees. You want things to be great. You want employees to be happy. You want clients to be happy. An ideal way of doing this is essentially create a podcast that's internal and start there first. To recap, you have value, you have actionable, you have longevity, you have unique, and you have envision goals. Now this worksheet is the worksheet to go with it. So think about all three of the worksheets that I showed you so far. This is a slide that I call triangulation. So imagine you're in the room, you've done your due diligence, you filled out these forms, and now you're getting ready to start your podcast. Well, you don't have anything to really do at this point in time. You have all your information in front of you in these 3 sheets. They're all right in front of you. You're going to say, okay, I'm going to talk about this topic today. This person is doing this job right now, and ideally the value I'm going to deliver today is this. And you can check them off, and you can reuse them, and you can kind of do multiple episodes based upon the principles. And again, you're outlining in these documents without having to think about it. So I want everyone to stand up for a second. I need you to say this next slide with your chest. Say it like you mean it. I am a badass podcaster. I can't hear you.
I'm a badass podcaster.
My teams build value.
My teams build value.
I will take massive action.
I will take massive action.
I'm a boss uncaged.
I'm a boss uncaged.
So I know you're probably thinking like, all this information, this is good stuff, bad stuff, whatever it may be. What's the case study for this, right? You can go ahead and sit down. So I'm going to have my wife come up here for a second. I just put her on the spot. So the reason why I'm bringing her up here is I'm going to tell you a little story, and then I'm going to have her give you more so the case analysis. So roughly about 4 years ago, I had an agency, and again, my agency started in early 2000, and I pretty much worked myself to death until 2018, and literally I had a stroke. At the end of 2018, which was literally a month till this month, in October is when it happened, and she looked at me and she said, well, what are you going to do now? This is before we was married. She was my girlfriend at the time. And then slowly thereafter that, I was like, well, what should I do? I'm thinking to myself, she's like, well, why don't you brand yourself the way you've been branding everyone else? Why don't you step in front of the limelight? So after she said that, I was like, okay, yes, I'm going to marry her. And then after that, I started going on the journey to become a podcaster, right? So I'm talking to you right now, not just because I went through the journey to become a podcaster. I'm talking to you right now because of her. In addition to that, if you look at the screen, you can kind of see generally where we are as podcasting, right? We're at the top 5% right now of podcasters globally, right? So we're ranked pretty decently, right? If you want to think about comparison, Joe Rogan is 0.001, we're 0.05. So we're in the early stages. I always say like we're the upper middle class of podcasting. We're not on Joe Rogan's level yet, but again, all the things that I'm teaching you and developing and expressing to you is that these are stages of progression to get to the next level. So I'm going to do this like a live podcast.
No. Wasn't dressed for this.
So the question I'm going to ask you is, you had an opportunity to work with me with your company to create your internal podcast. So I want you to kind of tell the scenario, why you would need an internal podcast, how did it work, and what was the benefits of it?
Okay, so probably like many deer in headlights, you're thinking, okay, how is this beneficial for my clients, or how is this beneficial for my company? So, little backstory, I guess I'm the case study now, officially. So when, at the death of George Floyd a few years ago, our company's morale was at 0 for the most part. We didn't know what to do. We didn't know how to open up the conversation. We did what probably a lot of companies did. We had a town hall. It was like 150 people on a Zoom call, and only 6 talked, and the other 140 plus sat there in silence with their camera off. So, okay, that wasn't beneficial at all. So we had already had a diversity and inclusion committee at the time, but we kind of branched off a little bit and did messaging and reporting. And so that was my team. Under messaging and reporting, we decided to do an internal podcast. So I work for a tech company, and number one is security in a tech company. So it's not like we can just record something, put it out on Slack, and call it a day. We had to figure out how to put some protections behind it. So we did some research, and you can password protect a podcast. There are hosting sites that do that for you, number one. But what it really did for the organization is give our teams the ability to really voice their opinion. And not only our interviews that we were doing at the time changed a little bit. The interviews we were doing at the time were employee spotlights. They would essentially say, hey, SA, I know what you do for the company. Let's just say you're the head of marketing, but who are you as a person? You know, I don't want to know about what you do as a marketer. I want to know who you are as a person. So you were born where?
Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah. Oh, that's exciting. You know, what is Trinidad and Tobago? What is, you know, if you wanted to talk about religion, if you wanted to talk about politics, we let the person just be who they need to be. And it really, really improved, number one, engagement, morale, and retention. Because I'm actually, my day job is a treasurer for this tech company, and so I'm the money girl. I'm the one that's like, hey, marketing, why are you spending so much money? I don't see a return yet. But we were losing people, and therefore everyone knows in this room, hiring and training is super expensive for the most part. So we started to kind of build retention a little bit. The other side of it was when people got to tell their stories and tell who they really are outside of the coder over here or the HR girl over here, it really gave them a sense of ownership, and they felt comfortable coming up and saying, hey, I have an idea for this product, or I have an idea for this product. And that affects the top line for the finance folks. That affects the top line. That affects our revenue. We're branching off a little bit in that where we are now taking the snippets of those podcasts and we're thinking about putting them externally. So on LinkedIn, and just to talk about, hey, as a company, we love our people are our greatest assets. Here's a snippet of our employee spotlight from X time frame. Just little small portions, nothing too personal, because we really don't want to put a lot of things out there externally just yet. We're not the American Airlines Trader Joe's level yet, but internally, people are excited. They're like, ooh, when can I get on the episode? When can I get on the episode? And I'm like, soon. Here's a sign up. So I think it's been beneficial for the most part. I look at the numbers. Like I said, our retention is in a very great place. Our employees are excited, they're staying. We're using it as a recruiting tool, actually, to say, hey, we have a podcast internally. You could be on it if you come and work here. So, can I go now?
Yes, you can go now. I think, obviously, you see why I married her, right? Kind of goes without saying. So we got a few minutes left. I think she answered one of the general questions about security that we usually get. So she answered that. Is there any other general questions? Yes.
Do you think podcasting should stay as an audio platform, or do you think with everybody trying to go, especially like with the Joe Rogan movement, moving into video?
I think video is a necessity. So podcasting, if you look at it from a scale, like a funnel, video should be primary. But keep in mind, there's two different demographics, right? You have demographics that are maybe running and jogging, riding in their car, they can't watch anything, hence why podcasting works well in that space. But on the other spectrum, you have people that are very engaged on the visual side. So starting with the video first and subtracting the audio from that video, you have an abundance of content. I mean, there's so much different elements that you can create from that. So I would say, yes, if you're going to do a podcast, it's not an audio only thing. And again, if you can't afford to do video, you can start with your cell phones. You don't have to start with major equipment. You can start with low-end equipment primarily. And if you don't want to be in front of the camera, then yes, you can do audio. But I guarantee you within 6 months to 12 months, much like when I started my first podcast, I started it only audio. But I knew enough after 6 months to start recording the video content, and then I started using that video content now. So in the first year I didn't use it, but now, like, you know, we're monetizing YouTube channel and all this other stuff, all those original videos are now coming into play. Great question. Anyone else? No reason to be shy. This is the time to pick. Ask questions. Yes.
What do you think the biggest mistake people make when they start a podcast is?
Thinking that you need to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get the equipment, that's one. Another one is thinking that, okay, nobody wants to hear from me. That's another big mistake. And again, podcasting is such a great niche and nuance to where you can speak to your audience and be yourself. You're not selling your company. You're not selling your company's brand. You're selling you as a brand. And once that connection is made, then they're going to tune in every single week to hear your insight, to hear how you perceive things, how you would fix that problem, how you deal with that solution. And that's how you start building that fan base. And then from that, then you can bridge them into your company brand. Great question as well. Yes?
So, you've never done podcasting before. What recommendation would you give for a platform or to you to start your
It's like saying you want to do a search engine. Obviously, you're going to pick either Bing or Google, right? With podcasting, because it's an RSS feed, the only thing you really want to be mindful of is that it has RSS feed. So I would say we use Bcast because it was a marketer that developed the platform for marketers. And again, it has so many different like strategies based into it, like inserts of intros and outros, and if you want to do ads, you can do intros and insert those ads in without having to edit the audio. So it makes it very easy transitionally like that. And another part of that I like about it is that because it's made for marketers, that we can convert the audio file into a video audio file and put that on YouTube from that platform as well. So there's Anchor FM, there are a dime a dozen. Even if you have an internal team or IT team, they want the security. So it's as easy as them setting up an RSS feed on your internal servers, and you can stream it internally and then take that content from the RSS feed and then put it globally externally later. Any other questions? Going once? Going twice? Cool. Well, we're at Digital Summit, and you know at the end of every presentation, we would like for you guys, if you got value from this, if this was definitely helpful and insightful, please, by all means, go on to the Digital Summit website and give us a review. Thank you.